Okay, it's 4 p.m. Eastern. Hello and welcome. I am Nick Kinoki, the Director of Technology for the Asset Leadership Network. And today we are here to talk to Dr. Doug Goetz and Jim Dieter. Before we get underway, I just wanted to mention Cecilia Mowat and Strategies Insight. She is sponsoring ALN Thursday at 4 this month. And so we'll have a quick 30-second video from her.
Hi, I'm Cecilia Mowat, President of Strategies Insight. We serve as a catalyst for private and public organizations to optimize their assets, improve their processes, and engage their full stakeholder base in order to diversify and innovate their product offerings.
Okay, and we just want to make sure we mention people like Cecilia, because without them, we would not be able to do events like this. So other patron sponsors of ALN is Onuma System and ABS Quality Evaluations. And then you can see our organizational members here, including the Andrew James Advisory Group, which is sponsoring the podcast. So we turn these sessions and others, like our Tuesday webinar series, 2021 National Issues, into podcasts, and the Andrew James Advisory Group is sponsoring that, so thank you. And with that, I just want to say, if you're out there calling in, we'd love to hear from you, so ask any questions or make any comments in the chat or the Q&A function of this Zoom webinar. And without further ado, Jim Dieter and Dr. Doug Goetz.
Hey, well, thanks, Nick. I've been waiting for this for a long time, and I finally tied Doug down and found a time on his schedule and got him to join us today. Welcome, Doug. Thanks for joining us today.
Thank you, Jim. It's an honor and a privilege, so always good to speak with you.
Great, thanks. Well, we usually know where we're calling from. I don't think Nick mentioned it today, but he's out in the Great West somewhere. Lander, Wyoming, and yeah,
I'm in
background. Yep,
I'm in Lander, Wyoming, and my background is from the Bighorns, northeast of me in Wyoming as well.
And Nick's quite a photographer too. That's his photograph. And I'm in Front Royal, Virginia today, and that's the fire behind me is not actually burning. It's a still, but I did take that of the fire in our cabin here a few minutes ago, so. Maybe give us a little fireside chat ambiance. And Doug, what thriving metropolis are you in today?
I'm in an area, a little town called Beaver Creek, Ohio. It is about 20 miles outside of Dayton, Ohio, which is the largest nearby city. It's in close proximity to Wright-Patterson Air Force Base, home, of course, to the Wright brothers, the U.S. Air Force Museum, and most of the buying commands, many of the buying commands for the United States Air Force. So it's a great little community for raising a family, for educational opportunities. It does get cold here during the winter, I have to admit, though. So, but originally, Jim, I'm a New Yorker. I come from Forest Hills, Queens, in New York City. And I still consider that in many ways my home, though I live here. New York has such a feel and flavor to it that I miss dearly. I have not been back for a year because of COVID. But I do have one story, Jim. You live in Front Royal, Virginia, you mentioned, okay? So
I'm not living, but I'm here, but yeah, yeah.
Okay, you don't live there, but I passed through Front Royal in 1976. It was a geography tour with a busload of students from Hunter College geography department. I was not associated with them, but my then girlfriend, now my wife of 43 years, we took this trip, got to Front Royal as one of the stops. They opened the bus door and we almost died. At least I did. I took one inhalation and I realized they have a paper plant here. Back in '76, it spewed a lot of pollution back then. So there was a certain aroma in the air. But that was my very first visit to Front Royal, Virginia, long time ago.
Well, it's a very pleasant little place now, and it doesn't stink. But there's also probably no industry, so there's that.
Okay.
But Doug, so you started to get there. Usually we start with an origin story. Now I know your origin story could probably take several hours, but can you give us a 1 or 2 minute version of
Down and dirty.
how you got into asset management?
Well, my mom and dad got together, and oh no, I'm sorry, that's different. I had, like many people, never even heard of property or asset management. Furthest thing from my mind while going through college for a bachelor's and master's, graduated with my bachelor's in '75, my master's in January of '77. And at that time in New York, rather difficult economic issues. You couldn't buy a job. But I had taken this test with the United States federal government called the PACE exam, and I got a call in '78 asking if I'd interview for an industrial property management specialist with Department of Defense. This was with, at that time, DeCasman, '78. So went in for the interview. The gentleman was very pleasant, very congenial, introduced me around the office and all. And I said, sir, I know nothing about what you're talking about here. This is not my education. This is not my background. And he said a phrase which really worried me. He said, oh, don't worry about it. Anybody can do this job. That was not really encouraging for me. But in spite of that, I took the job and worked with DeCasma from '78 until '84 as an industrial property management specialist, property administrator, learning the regulatory constructs for DoD and the management of property and assets there. '84, I got an opportunity to interview for an instructor job at the Air Force Institute of Technology. The person that hired me fought diligently to get me brought out there because they wanted somebody who'd actually done the job. All their other instructors in the area just viewed it as a theoretical construct. Got hired, stayed with AFIT, running their property management series of courses, developing them with another gentleman, Dr. John Pachorik, who's now also retired. Mr. Jim Cordes was our guide on at the Pentagon, and he supported us mightily with doing so much stuff, the DoD property manual, expansion of the courses for the technical material. In the year 2000, we transferred from the Air Force Institute of Technology to Defense Acquisition University. Stayed there until 2010, retired from the government in 2010, but Jim, they missed me. So they brought me back as an intermittent professor from 2010 until 2013, fully retired there, fully left the government there, I should say, and started my own company offering training and education in the field of contract property management, a very focused area. And just this past January 1st of 2021, sort of put out the announcement that I was packing it in. I was retiring. You reach an age at some point where you'd like to do a few other things. So I've had a wonderful experience. Again, this is not where I intended to go. But from my personal perspective, I have a deep sense of faith. The good Lord has opened up doors that I could have never imagined. I have traveled all over the world to the best places in the world to see property and asset management, to the worst places in the world, the war zones that have been out there in the Balkans, in Kuwait and Iraq, and seeing how those operations supporting our Department of Defense and our soldiers, sailors, airmen, Marines, and Coast Guard as to managing assets and property. It's been a great ride.
Well, I remember back in my early in the NPMA, and I joined in '85, and I think you're one of the few people around left that's been a member of the NPMA longer than I have. But I first heard of you as a roomer, because you had trained everybody that was doing my audits working for contractors. And then you quickly turned, in my mind, from a rumor to a legend because of the impact you have. And I just have to say, I've never seen anybody that had as big an impact on a profession and a group of people in my life as you have on the NPMA. And it's such an amazing legacy. You're just, thank you and congratulations for
Well,
that.
Jim, no, thank you. I am humbled. It was just one of the things that you give it your all. You contribute.
Yep.
You pay back that which has allowed you to put food on the table and earn a living. So it has always been my goal to do that.
Yeah. Now, we've had a lot of discussions. I've had a lot of discussions, and other people, Jack Kelly and other people involved in ALN, with people from around the world involved in asset management. And of course, with the ISO standard coming up, a few years ago. And there's these versions of history of asset management. And of course, we use property management and government from government perspective, and asset management are interchangeable terms. But these people are pretty sure that somebody in Australia invented asset management in the late 80s. I wonder what your reaction would be to that statement.
Okay, Jim, I have a warped sense of humor, and if I was in another forum, I'd probably say, what is that person smoking? But no, we won't go there, all right? If they make that claim, they're ignorant of history. There is so much literature out there that predates that. I have a textbook up on the shelf here for defense, accounting for defense contracts from 1949, and it has a whole section on property management, discussing systems, discussing records, discussing financial controls. So though it wasn't called asset management at that time, the construct of property management for assets within a corporate structure or even a government structure, no, I'd have to disagree with that the literature, the historical literature, clearly defines that this has been around roughly since the end of World War II. Logisticians would argue that point of asset management has been around even beforehand, because during World War II, the quote is, I don't know what this logistics is, said by a general, but I want more of it, because they realized the criticality of getting their resources to the warfighter in the field. I'm sorry, no, I would disagree vehemently with the individual from Australia, respectfully, of course. I have too many books up here in this my office that would say it otherwise.
Good. When we first started and we ran the video from Cecilia, who is, I guess you wouldn't have had a chance to meet so far, but she's like a Chicago version of you in a lot of ways. I would love to have you two in on a conversation sometime. That would be priceless. I'm gonna have to find a way to make that happen.
Absolutely.
I'd love her. She's great people. So let's look back and then let's look forward. So when you look back over this amazing career you've had, what are the things that really stood out to you? From a personal perspective, or from the whole system perspective, but like what are the big highlights? I mean, you've had so many. That's a really hard question, but can I hold you to one or two?
Yeah, two things then. Number one, writing the first DoD property manual, 4161.2-M. Jim Cordes had approached me and Dr. Pechoric and said, guys, we have this old supplement 3 out there, the Armed Services Procurement Reg. It was about a 20-page document, and it was parsimonious. It was skimpy. It didn't have depth and breadth. And he said, write something. We need good, solid guidance. And that was published in 1990, rescinded in 2010 because of the publication of the FAR rewrite in 2007. but for a manual to survive 20 years, that certainly is one of my major achievements. The other was, as a professor trying to create, I'm going to give you three of them, right? As a professor trying to create a series of courses that had never existed before. Oh, we had a basic course, which we offered through NPMA. And I think I have a picture, as do you, somewhere, Jim, of you in that class out in San Diego standing around a pool, all right? That has shown up on Facebook. But being able to craft the theoretical underpinnings and then transfer that to an educational forum where we ended up with 5 courses covering like 8 weeks of material, in-depth training material was my second issue. And right now I forgot what the third thing was that I wanted to, oh yeah, it's one of those things, you get the gray hair, and being able to have 2 books published by NPMA, the first one on selected readings, the second one on doing system analysis. So the idea was always to try and leave something for future generations, that 20-year span for people to use and learn. So you got 3 things out of me.
No, that's really good. Good stories. So what about the future? What do you, if you could have one wish of something you would change in the world of property and asset management as you know it, if you were the king for a day, what would that thing be?
Yeah, so this has to be structured as a twofold approach, right? I really worry about the direction of the Department of Defense. A number of years ago, there was the Defense Acquisition Workforce Improvement Act, which culled out as one of the professions industrial property management specialists or property administrators or plant clearance officers as the 1103 series. By law, they were required to take a series of courses plus continuing education, plus becoming certified. They had a certificate of appointment. Just recently, within the past 2 months, it has been decided that the 1103 series within DoD would go away. They would be rolled into the 1102 series, which is contracting officers, contract administrators. My worry there is they will be lost in the shuffle. DoD will lose visibility of a critical resource today, especially with things like the financial improvement audit readiness that's out there, or now financial improvement audit remediation, looking at the financial linkages to property management. And that worries me from a DoD perspective. Now, if I was king of the forest, what I would really like to see is a major at a university level in property and asset management. We have lots of related fields to what we do, but people don't know what we do. I mentioned that in 1978, I had no idea what industrial property management specialists, property administrators did or what they were. It wasn't my area of expertise. So I would love to see, and we tried to do this, not too successfully, create a good, solid degree program at multiple universities that would bring together a number of disparate fields that could be that property and asset managers need to know. They need to know the business underpinnings. They need to know the financial and accounting underpinnings. They need to know the issues related to production and inventory management. They need to know all of those. Now, with ISO 5500, there is that top layer. And what I would envision is this pyramidic structure going down and saying, look, you want to be an asset manager, you need this, to do 2 things. Number 1, has sufficient depth in what you're doing. Number 2, has sufficient breadth in what you're doing. I would love for that to happen. I don't see it happening right now. There are lots of degree programs out there that are related. For example, the Institute of Supply Management has wonderful degree programs which have so many things that overlap with what we do. But none of them are saying a Bachelor of Science degree in asset management. And that's critical today, in my opinion. We need to develop that.
Yeah. I mean, there are degree programs in other countries in asset management, both graduate and postgraduate. In the UK for sure, and it might be in Australia as well. Yeah.
Within England, Great Britain, there is that property management group in the government, but their real focus is on real property, real estate, buildings that they manage, right?
Yeah.
Seen a number of their publications, thoroughly enjoy their weekly bulletins. So I need to do further research to see the curricula or curriculum of those various schools. So we need to talk about that. I'd like to see that.
Yeah. So you mentioned 55,000. You know, I've been in the NPMA. I started talking about ISO 55,000 in 2011, I think. But you know, my impression was, or my takeaway was, that the NPMA people are working for government agencies or government contractors, and they don't have the ability to make something like that happen in their organization, or they don't perceive that they do. How would you see that, working, on the government contractor side or federal agency side, if you have thoughts on that? How do you think we could, make some progress there?
I would have no problem on either side, industry or government, DOD, looking at property management. Now, for industry, I'm going to give you a broad generalization. Internal to industry, people will clamor and say, we need to do this. I have seen experientially that if somebody from the outside recommends it, i.e. say a consultant, all of a sudden, wow, this is the greatest thing, we need to do this. But the profit internal to the organization will do that. I think it's a lack of knowledge. It's a lack of awareness at the highest levels for my agency, DOD. I'm no longer DOD, but trying to impress upon them the benefit of that, which then would have, and I hate to use this phrase, a trickle down effect, that if the big people agree to ISO 55,000, all of a sudden the underpinnings would come into place. Okay, 55,000 is this very top level. All right, we understand that. This is in the executive C-suites of being application. If it doesn't come from them, in my opinion, in DOD, it's not going to happen. Mm-hmm. But the second it gets adopted there, all of a sudden now it's like, wait, we have the ASTM standards, we have NPMA, where all of a sudden those folks have the boots on the ground knowledge. They may not have addressed it up at that very top level of management, but all of a sudden for applying the managerial controls lower in concert with the two, I think there's a great implication. And I said to you at another meeting, if I was to redo all of my curriculum, I would put ISO 55,000 as the opening day's material, explaining its application, its implications to everything else we do. I don't think the big people see that right now.
So what would you have any advice for the ALN or people in general? And how can we move that thinking forward? You're right on the money as far as we're concerned. For ALN, our focus is on top management because that's where it needs to happen. Everybody's interested, but how do you get that ball? How do you get it written into contract? How do you get it into DOD, thinking? Got any insight on that?
Let me do industry first. You knew him well. I knew him well. We lost Mr. Bob McFarland a couple of years ago, but yeah. Bob presented a wonderful analysis of the cost savings that can be realized through the proper application of asset management. I mean, a 3-part article published in the NPMA magazine. It's still out there. You could go to the NPMA website, do a search for McFarland, and those articles would pop up. So you gave the industry an economic benefit to apply good asset management strategies. My way of selling it to them is to say, look, to accomplish this, this is how we do it. As an academic, there's been replication of that. Larry Miramontes, with his company, he presented his analysis called Being Bob McFarland, where he took all of the processes that Bob laid out and applied it on his company and showed the savings. I don't think we do that enough on industry side. Government, boy, that's a more difficult situation, Jim, to try and convince the managers at that top level who are coming in under now a new administration. They're coming in from business, they're coming in from industry. That's the normal, I hate to say this term, the revolving door. But they'll come in and they bring with them their preconceived notions. I think we need to be able to convince them while they are in industry how this benefits DoD and then implement that. Leantha Sumter used to use a phrase, we need to make it a strategic imperative that if we don't do this, bad things will happen, we will fail and continue to fail and spin our wheels, right? I saw a gentleman here, how do we convince top management that ISO 55000 is worth supporting? Generally, I'd recommend a 2x4. Yeah, that was meant to be humorous. No, we can't go about beating people about the head and shoulders with a large piece of lumber. Literature, articles convincing people as to the savings that can be realized, the efficiency and effectiveness, the efficacy of proper asset management systems to help that, to support in DoD the war fighter, that this isn't just some lark or walk in the park. This is an opportunity for excellence, a pathway to excellence, if they'd only recognize it. So.
Well, before Nick jumps in, I got one more question, Nick, that I got to ask.
Excellent.
That's, and Nick usually comes in with a Q&A questions. But my question, Doug, is one thing. What's the funniest thing happened to you in your career?
No, you got to understand, there are lots of funny things that have happened to me. Okay.
Oh, I know.
Okay. Oh, my goodness. So Dr. Pachurk and I were in the Balkans, Bosnia, Croatia, Macedonia, Slovenia. We were at Kapeshvar, Hungary, which was a former Russian military base that a support contractor, a log cap contractor, and I can't mention them by name, was performing all the support work there. We were assigned to an Army tent the first night. Well, no, I wasn't Army, I was Air Force, which that Army tent consisted of a cot, a sleeping bag, and that was it. At which point, Dr. Pachurk and I explained we were with the Air Force, and they moved us over to the Air Force side of the base, which had a wonderful hard-sided tent, wonderful bedding with mattresses, a microwave, a refrigerator, a TV, heating units in there, really cool. But you had to go to the ablution units or the showers in the morning to take a shower. Walked over, and they said, it's simple. You go there, and you just go around the corner, and there's the shower units. Great, wonderful. I had used the bathroom facilities first, walked around the corner, and promptly proceeded to walk into the women's shower unit. My appearance, as you can see, is this long-haired, bearded guy, even back then. That was probably the funniest thing that ever happened, because word of mouth spread around Kapeshvar, the base camp there, that there's this guy who was going into the women's shower room. They didn't tell me that I had to go the other way to get to the men's shower room. So there you go. It's memorialized now.
Perfect. Well, I just want to jump in here because it's the end of 30 minutes, and I know some of you have only that amount of time. So thank you so much for being here. Let me just say a thank you to our organizational members and patron sponsors, and then a plug for next week, Thursday in 1 week's time, we will have Mildred Chua, and she will be talking with Mike Bordenaro. And now I think we have a few more questions if you have a moment of time, Doug.
That would be absolutely wonderful. Go for it.
One question that we had coming through the chat was, how do you get young people involved in asset management?
Yeah, darned if I know. All right, no. Again, I think that's where the degree program would help from an informational perspective. I'll give you an example. Dr. John Wyatt out at Cal Poly has actually started a degree program that includes asset management, and a number of his people, his graduates, have already entered in that field. There's an awareness issue that we're not reaching the colleges because there are no degree programs here in the US to say, ladies and gentlemen, look, this can be a wonderful, wonderful degree program. And we have had people, Jim, you know who they are, I know who they are, who have been in this career field for 10, 15, 20, 25, 30 years and had very successful careers, starting some of them at working in a tool crib. And one of my best friends, we just did an NPMA presentation today on self-assessments for NPMA, Mr. Tom Rockdashel. We met in 1980. Tom, I was just a starting industrial property management specialist going out to a contractor to do an audit. Tom was working in the tool crib. Okay, I had to go audit the tool crib. We became friends. So from 1980 to now, 2021, though we have taken different paths, we've had wonderful careers in property asset management. That needs to be advertised to people to say, look, you can make a career. Tom went back to school to get multiple master degrees, Harvard Business School for their leadership program. Me, I had to go back for a PhD because I was in an academic environment. So awareness is critical, and you're doing that. It's a superb job. I see so much stuff coming through to say, look, this is important. NPMA, its awareness programs, colleges and universities really, really, I think need to start that, but we need to hook them and then bring them in. So I hope that helps a little bit.
That was a great answer. And we are inviting in Cecilia Mowat to ask her question, which you might have saw in the Q&A.
There she is.
Wow.
Oh, we can't hear you yet, Cecilia.
Yeah, good afternoon. You know, Jim, I'm going to pay you later. Doug, I mean, that was a compliment that had me blushing, because I remember when Doug presented at the Restructuring America conference this past year, and how awed I was by his presentation. So to put me in his realm is very whatever. But the quick point, I'd like to take you up on that offer, Jim, to do something with Doug at some point, because he has a lot to share. But Doug, when you talk about the degree program, would you consider that to be one of the requirements to be customer relationship management or organizational behavior? Because ISO 55001 really does hit on stakeholder involvement and understanding and communicating with. And at the bottom line, for me, the most important assets any organization has are its people and its relationships. And I'm not saying that it's the relationships, because Mike Bordenaro will beat me for saying people are assets, even though we call them human resources and human capital, but okay. I'm learning my lesson from Mike that I can't call people assets. I
Well,
don't know why I don't know that myself.
my problem is when I use that term, everybody thought I was talking about small donkeys. And asset. Okay, that was a bad joke. I apologize, all right?
We're supposed to
got
laugh
it.
there, I think.
But here's the issue. We often apply labels, and we hear a title, and we don't relate that to actually what's done. The issue was customer relations, organizational structure. Where's the word asset in there? I think that labeling, that nomenclature is so critical to us getting involved because it's tangible. There's substance to that. So I like what you're saying. I really want to push even harder to try and get the proper labeling, titling, nomenclature applied to what we do.
I can agree with that. Having come from a corporate background, it's really critical for us to get that recognition. It has to be something that has to do with, at the end of the day, the bottom line. And for every company, every organization, every government agency.
So can I share one other humorous story, Jim? Would that be allowed?
Oh, I think we can grant permission for that, can't we?
So Cecilia, you said people are assets, right? So when I started working at the Air Force, no, okay, no, you didn't.
Relationships, understanding the relationships, the integration of the relationships with the processes of an organization, the
Absolutely.
assets of the organization based on the relationships of people to that organization.
Very good, very good. But the story does not hinge on that. So some people have referred to me as a long-haired hippie, all right? There's some degree of truth to that. I'm sorry, all right? So when I started at AFIT in 1984, the commandant of the university, because we had 4 different colleges under AFIT, had an all-hands meeting. And one of the things he said were, people are our most important asset. Okay. He then gave the briefing for the rest of the time, and then he said, look, here in AFIT, here at Wright-Patterson Air Force Base, we are in the no heat, no cool season. They needed to transition the facilities from heating during the winter to air conditioning during the summer, which meant that our offices became stifling hot. Environmentally secure buildings, windows don't open, you sat there and you sweated. Well, at this meeting then, this long-haired hippie in the back of the room, when the Q&A started, I sort of raised my hand and I said, General, if people are your most important asset, why is it that the computer center has air conditioning, but we don't? That question was never answered, but I was summoned to my dean's office after that meeting and told I could not ask any more questions. They finally realized I would ask sometimes difficult questions that put people on the spot. It was more important for them to have air conditioning for the computer equipment than it was for their most important responsibility. So no, I don't like that phrase either. I never have aligned people as assets, right? Human resources, oh yes. The mixing of the terms bothers me.
But would you see it as part of the curriculum?
Oh, absolutely.
Okay.
The simple part within the government is that there are personnel standards. Office of Personnel Management has Handbook X118, which tells you exactly what each position does. Ours in the GS 1103 series is so woefully out of date. I don't know whoever wrote it, but what can I tell you? It's horrible. It's horrible. It doesn't reflect what we really do to support the mission of the agency and to truly manage those assets. Cecilia, great questions. Would love to talk to you on a less formal basis here.
Okay, we'll definitely do it. And maybe we'll even explore some of what we're doing with our equity committee with you. That might be an interesting dialogue.
Very good. Very good.
Thank you.
No, my pleasure.
And
And I
thank
don't
you,
work for
Jim, for the compliment.
I don't work for Chick-fil-A either, but it was my pleasure. All right.
Nick, you have any more questions in the queue, or?
I have not seen any come through.
All right, well, Doug, the last question then is, what question did you think I was going to ask that I didn't ask?
None whatsoever. The most humorous one. You done good there, Jim. We've
I was
known
trying
each
to,
other.
my favorite, go ahead.
We've known each other a long time, you know.
I wonder if I've cussed you more or you've cussed me more over time. I don't know. That could be close. I don't know.
Don't know. So what was the story you were going to tell?
One, my favorite Doug Goetz story. So there was at an NPMA event, they have an auction. You know, people bring things, you know, various auction things. And I can't remember what the thing was, but Fred, Seth, and I came up with this plan that we were going to bid up Doug Goetz on this particular item and get him to buy it. And the goal was to get it as high as we possibly could without screwing ourselves. And we did it, you know, it was some like meaningless thing and it went for $500 or something.
Oh, no. I believe it went up higher than that because I think, Jim,
Oh.
you can't see it, but it's sitting outside in a shed all the way in the back of that shed. It's a picture of me drawn by Dr. Pachurik in a hula skirt.
Ah.
So stop laughing, Nick. It's not that funny. Oh yeah, there were a lot of, what was the phrase they used? This consortium would get together to drive the price up just to bother me. So, very good, Tom. I'm glad you remembered that one.
I think I have a picture of it somewhere. I don't know, but yeah, I could. Yeah, I've seen
Yeah,
it.
I'm not going to look
Well,
through
Doug,
my Facebook page postings. I'm sure there are pictures out there.
well, Doug, thank you so much for joining us today. And again, thank you for everything you've done for this profession and continue to do. And although you're, red now, not only red face, but retired, whatever, something and dangerous. But
Extremely.
please feel free to use the ALN as a way to share anything you would like to in the future. We'll always be here. So
thank you again. It's been an honor and privilege to be invited. So thank you. Pleasure to meet the other folks. Cecilia, pleasure to meet you also. So thank you. Thank you all.
Take care.
All right.
Thanks. Bye-bye. Have a great day, everyone.